All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er Rams Week 3 preview. Check out Pig in a Pickle. 2 locations, Emeryville, Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon, say hi to Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. I'm loving Pig in a Pickle. And also thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. My good friend down there on the Monterey Peninsula, Anthony Catania. Give him a call. He's at 831-521-5264. All right, let's take one more look before the game at Niners-Rams. Spent a lot of time looking at this game this week. Talked to a lot of players. Looked at a lot of different previews. Talked to 4 or 5 different people from Los Angeles about the Rams. Read everything I could read on the Rams, on the Niners, on the matchup. We now know Kittle is out, Debo's out, CMC's out. Obviously that, is huge for the 49ers. But the Rams are, the walking wounded. I mean, if you look at their list, here's the Rams list of, on IR right now. They've got Darius Williams, the corner, IR, Joe Notaboom, Steve Avila, phenomenal guard. Guy's as big as a house, tough. Jonah Jackson, the free agent they just got from the Lions. John Johnson, the third, the safety, and Puka Nacua. All on injured reserve right now. So, the Rams aren't going to cry for the Niners' injuries, but it's the injured Niners, the injured Rams at SoFi in what promises to be 3/4 Niners fans. And on paper, this looks like the real easy get-right game, right? And I think the game plan is as clear as day. The Rams, Aaron Donald retired, for those who aren't paying attention. Ernest Jones showed up in camp this summer and said, you know what, trade me. Now, Ernest Jones, really good linebacker, had 149 tackles last year, really good player. And the Rams said, instead of saying no, they said, okay, and they traded him to the Titans, and he's playing really well now with the Titans. And the Rams came out in week 1, and they played the Lions really tough in week 1. And they out-yardaged them, if you look at the box score. But when it got to the overtime, the Lions just pounded the run down their throat. And they ran for 5-3 a carry. Arizona got that same game plan the next week and just went Connor crazy on them to the tune of 5-8 a carry. This is a Jordan Mason, run the ball, 25 carries, run it down their throat, dominate the time of possession, smash mouth, what does he call it, ice bag game. That's what this one is. This should be an old school, run the ball, dominate time of possession with Jordan Mason, and just run it right down their throat. If Connor can run it on this team, Jordan Mason can run it on this team. Mason looks great. And just feed him. Don't get cute. Don't get fancy. Don't come out passing. Just run it right at him and just take it away from him. You got to get Verse and Byron Young blocked on passing downs. But the real key is just stay out of passing downs. Those guys are going to get theirs. Verse is strong. Both those guys are 260 coming off the edge, and they're really fast. That's the strength of the Rams D. You got to get those guys blocked for sure. And that's the challenge for the Niners offensively. They got to get Ayuk going. Ayuk got paid a ton of money, and they got to start featuring him right now. And then somebody else besides Ayuk's going to have to step up wide receiver-wise. And I don't know who it's going to be. Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley. I'm thinking maybe Jacob Cowing. And it would be great to see Jacob Cowing, come of age here. He's got a lot of talent. He can catch the ball. He can separate vertically. Brock can put it on his hands. I know the guy muffed the punt, but you know what? Welcome to the NFL moment. Sometimes that's the way it goes. So I talked to him in the locker room. I really think Cowing might bust out this week for the Niners, and that would be the guy I would lean on. But it's an Ayuk game. It's a Jordan Mason game. It's a run-heavy game. The Rams the defining characteristic of the Rams, they cannot stop the run. And it's not like, they're not great. They're awful against the run. So just dominate them on the run right through them. And if you got to use multiple backs, Patrick Taylor, Garendo, Juice, do it. If you've got to act, the Niners did make a roster move, and they activated Braden Willis and Sam Aquinu off the practice squad. So those guys have been added. Willis we knew about. Aquinu, obviously they need a pass rusher. But yeah, offensively, without the game plan's clear. Run the ball against the Rams. All right, let's talk about the other side of the ball, because this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. The Rams have Stafford, and he gets rid of it in 2.6 seconds. So you're really not going to sack him. So you can gear up for this. Get Matthew Stafford in 3rd and long and tee off. But the reality is he's going to get rid of the ball really quick. He's got a great quick release. He's a veteran. You really can't fool him. What the challenge in this game, and why this game is a little scary, is that the Rams had Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And those guys were in lockstep with Stafford, and, the stop routes and the timed routes and all the stuff within 10, 12 yards of the line of scrimmage. It's almost virtually unstoppable when they have Puka and Kupp and the route running, and they're in sync with Stafford, and it's just a really difficult thing to defend. So those guys are out. That's the good news. The bad news is the Rams are going to lean on Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell to some degree, and Tyler Johnson. And, none of those guys are big name guys, but Demarcus Robinson is, got good size, and he's a vertical threat. He's an explosive vertical threat. Now, does he have great ball skills and hands? No. He had 11 drops at Florida. And the guy's had some issues off the field. He was suspended 4 times in college. But he's a vertical threat. He's an explosive vertical threat. And then Tutu Atwell, ran 4.39 at his pro day coming out. But, he's probably even faster than that. Tutu's just a game breaker. He's one of the fastest guys in football. So the Niners are going to have to defend the verticals. I'm talking about the post routes, the go routes, Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson. It's a totally different challenge than Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And I don't know that the 49ers have the speed on the back end to run with Atwell or with Robinson. So that, to me, is going to be interesting. We saw last week Justin Jefferson and Sam Darnold go over the top. That's the nightmare play in the NFL. You rarely see it anymore with the way you can play the safeties deep down the field. But that's exactly what happened. And this week, the exact same thing is potentially could happen. Demarcus Robinson can get over the top. Tutu Atwell can run by you. If 4-4 Justin Jefferson can run by you, then 4-3 Tutu Atwell can just blur by you. So, Tutu Atwell's tiny. He's 5'9", 160. But he is a vertical threat. He's one of the fastest guys in football. So, to me, that's a big one for the Niners. And it really comes down to, can the 49er defensive line, which on paper should have an advantage against a Ram offensive line that has Bo Limmer at center. He's a rookie from Arkansas, day 3 draft choice. Logan Bruss, I believe, is one of the guards, and he wasn't in there this year. He's a backup type player. The Rams have problems on the offensive line, and that's clear. So the Niners defensive front should have beat Minnesota's offensive line last week, at least in the interior, and really didn't. So Collins and Hargrave have got to make an impact in this game up the middle, and Stafford has to feel some pressure. If you give Stafford time, and he can let Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson work their way down the field, he's got the arm to get it there. And he could make this a vertical show, and it could be ugly. So, I think that's one thing the 49ers have to think about. Can the Niner defensive line pressure Stafford and disrupt the rhythm that he has with his receivers? Stafford's a hell of a quarterback. The other thing is Tyler Johnson. He's kind of a no-name guy. He won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. He was a prolific receiver in college. If you go back to the University of Minnesota, Tyler Johnson was a terrific, very, very productive receiver. He had 30 touchdowns and 200 catches in college. He was a hell of a player at the University of Minnesota. So he is not a vertical threat. He's slow. He runs in the 4.7s, but he's got great hands. And on third down, I would look for Stafford to go to Tyler Johnson in soft spots in a zone or underneath situation with Atwell and Robinson running off the coverage. Look for Johnson underneath. The other guy who he's going to be looking for a lot is a big target, the former Stanford star Colby Parkinson. Big-bodied tight end. I talked to Mason Pline this week in the Niner locker room. He said he was trying to give the Niners offense or defense a look on the scout team by pretending to be Parkinson in the workouts this week. But Parkinson's a big back. The other thing I think you're going to see is you're going to see Blake Corum in the backfield and Kyron Williams. The Rams go a lot of 11 personnel with the three wides, and they don't really necessarily have a deep inventory of receivers with Puka out and Kupp out. You may see Kyron Williams in the slot and Blake Corum in the backfield. Either way, look for Kyron Williams to get his hands on the ball, and both those guys are difficult to tackle. So that's another key. You got to be able to tackle Corum and Kyron Williams if you're going to win this game. And then I think, the other thing that when you look at this game, the 49ers can't turn the ball over, and they can't lose the game on special teams. I mean, last week a muffed punt, and you had a blocked punt. I mean, you got to play clean on special teams. Moody's looked pretty good. That's the good news. The punter obviously got one blocked. The coverage units have been kind of spotty, but you can't lose the game on special teams. I would say that would be the goal of the week. Don't lose the game on special teams. And we've seen the Niners lose games before on special teams. So, I mean, I think it's real clear. You lean on Ayuk, you lean on Jordan Mason with all your weapons out. And then you make sure that you get Verse and Byron Young blocked so they don't destroy Brock Purdy. You have a run-heavy game plan. You play games up front with the Rams line because they do have so many new faces, and make them communicate. Hopefully with Hufanga back in the lineup, the Niners will communicate better on the back end themselves. I think that's big. And, I'll say it the same way I said it last week. Collins and Hargrave have got to win. Last week they should have won and didn't. This week on paper they should win, and we'll see if they do. Hargrave's getting paid a lot of money. Collins was brought in. These guys are major investments on this defense. I don't know that the Niners can do it if these guys don't really ball. So I'm looking for them to step up. The other thing I think you're going to see, because if you're the Rams and you're McVay, you don't have. I mean, they targeted Cooper Kupp in Week 1 against Detroit 21 times, and I think he caught like 17 balls or something. It was something ridiculous. But they had 21 targets for Cooper Kupp. So they were going to Kupp. They were going to Puka. This is not the offense they wanted to have. But they're also in desperation mode. And they're going to come in just really, really hungry. I mean, Shanahan said it this week when I asked him about the Rams. He's like, hey, you know what? When you get beat by like that bad, I mean, it really makes the, the guys kind of focus. And so you're going to see a focused, intense Ram team that's 0-2. They won 10 games last year. There's guys in that room that are wearing Super Bowl rings. They do not want to go down the tubes. And so this is going to be, I think, an incredibly challenging game for the 49ers. And I don't know who's going to win this game, but this is going to be a very, very challenging game. If the 49ers lose this game, I think Niner fans will panic. And say, man, the season's going down the tubes. But just remember, the key element, I think, in this game defensively is don't let Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell go over the top. Because that is what we saw last week with Jefferson, and that would be absolutely crushing. And that's a concern because the Niners' speed on the back end is not great. And those guys can both run, and this is a very fast surface. And if the Niner defensive front cannot get pressure on Stafford, and he has time to let those guys work open down the field, he's got the arm to make those throws to go over the top. So that, to me, is a primary concern. Even though it seems like a low percentage play, I think after watching the film last week, they're going to take 2 or 3 shots down the field, and they've got the speed to make those plays. So that's a primary one. I think the meat and potatoes of this game is going to be don't let Tyler Johnson beat you on third down. make sure Kyron Williams and Blake Corum are tackled. And then offensively, just make sure you get those edge rushers blocked and run Mason. I mean, run Mason a lot. I mean, that the dominant stat is that the Rams have been outrushed by like 250 yards. I think almost 260 in 2 games. They have given up a ton of rushing yards. Run the ball. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corners for sponsoring the video. Go Niners. I do think they'll win. I think it will be close. And join us, of course, join me on CamBR in the pregame and the postgame. And then, of course, after that, we'll have the Krug Show, and Kev will be there, and I believe Rye and Danny, and we'll talk a little bit about the game and read your chats and maybe even take some video calls. So join us tomorrow night. But the Niners, I like the Niners to win a close game, but I think it could be high scoring, to be honest. I think it could be like, game could be 27-24. I think there's going to be some moments where the Rams offense, even without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, has some success against this 49er D. We'll see. It should be a very interesting game. Have a great night. Go Niners. Thanks for watching the Krug Show.